Hello, Shea Matthew Fisher here. This is a piece that I did which involved taking the Wikipedia article entitled Philosophical Concepts, which is a list of 357 concepts in alphabetical order that come from philosophy, different world philosophical systems, and I copied that list, put it through a word randomizer or a list randomizer to take it out of alphabetical order into a random order, and then using that list as raw material, I created a poem out of it. Every noun, every proper noun at least, there are some pronouns, every proper noun in the piece is one of these philosophical concepts. And the title of the piece is Concepts Philosophical, because I took the phrase philosophical concepts and I randomized it, and I got Concepts Philosophical. So here it is. The well-founded phenomenon of Sittlichkeit is known to be equivalent to Samarasa. In this paper, I show that triloka is not simply post-hegemony writ large, but real freedom follows directly from aperon. Furthermore, Tantra is the norm in Raja Yoga. Another topic at play is that of intellectual responsibility. In this way, Ren is an emergent property of physical matter. Now, belief contrasts with Dharma because the latter involves a cultural sensibility that reintegrates subjectification via pure dogma and cold logical truth. Speculative reason can be used to rectify this situation by reference to the classical notion of consent. The ever-present Cartesian other undermines truth and gives way to a category of being known as pure theorem. This concept of reason produces a categorical imperative known not for its interpolation, but for its reciprocity. This brings us to the conscience of trust. The final cause of value is jus sanguinis, a virtual self. Excellence in yoga is by definition information in the form of a brain in a vat. Now, mercy is given to the Brahmanda that supplies the necessary and sufficient conditions for the avant-garde. The latter's desiring production invokes an involution principle that is as arborescent as judgment itself. Aesthetic interpretation is caused by aesthetic emotions, because pneuma is not only integral to moksha, but it provides the Aufheben that is most needed. Most rites are merely a taste for dhyana and the denigration of the physical body. Not to mention that autonomy is neglected by the intuition and fetishized by the overmind. Despite this, the unobservable material cause of simulated reality creates the distrust of a body without organs. Nowhere does the right to exist supply a ring of Gyges than does the utter cuteness of Max Shaler's concept of recitement. However, mimesis is really the converse of the Guerrier problem, since natural and legal rights reveal descriptive knowledge that lifts ignorance into a polycotomous key. Accordingly, the social contract of virtue supports a formal theorem and logical constant of the construct experience. Yi is in the league of peace. Plus, Kundalini energy is the most sophisticated two-stage model of free will. Many think that telos is the proper logical implication of duty, yet immanent critique flows through identity and change consistently. Now, cogito ergo sum minus licite, multiplied by embodied cognition divided by fact plus unity of the proposition does not equal thought, nor satchidananda, but is parallel with supermind. Yes, we all want perpetual peace. Nature is good sometimes, but the instantiation principle eliminates shunya as fast as rajas. Their seemingly crazy wisdom is merely a mental representation posing as free will. I propose that it is eroticism combined with eudaimonia in a beautiful unity of science that truly gives birth to transcendental apperception, which then transcends the usual disciplinary institution and generates alternative possibilities wider than all ideaphora. Most put entity before objectivity. The Cambridge Change says otherwise. Vamachara attracts both implicit and explicit order. This is more complex than motion. For example, Shabda assimilates the omphalos hypothesis, attenuates physis, and accentuates the set. A sublime perception reduces the zeitgeist into a substitution for discourse and normative science. Less ideological repression usually means more item. In fact, the thrownness of brute fact is a timeless universality. Consequently, a just war after logos brings documentality to the object and a new norm of reciprocity. In turn, the emergence of soku-hi evokes disgust because of both its intrinsic and extrinsic properties. Per contra, conatus negates pratyabhindya in the narrow sense. After all, the analytical synthetic distinction crosses agathousia and ashimothousia with Marx's theory of alienation. The underlying presupposition here is that mundane reason, a notion familiar to Kalachakra and belonging to a long-lost epoche, channels syntax with sincere entertainment. Be that as it may, Problem of Other Minds hands us an ideal speech situation. To be a transcendent half-truth requires knowledge that even a mantra from the life of Jesus cannot provide. If this is just semantics, it's still my property. The conducting of a composition of causes predates the core intention by challenging the rule of rescue. These include righteousness, injustice, and charvaka. Formal cause is to de dicto and de re as dwelling is to qualia. A truth value appears in substantial form each time Chaitanya comes to class. Anyhow, a Brahman with a work of art is a problem of induction. Justice and ideology and meaning of life are only ethics of care. Quality matters, and in visions you praxis as the essence of trika itself. No one argues that suffering is utility, except for in karma yoga, where epistemic virtue coheres with dispositional and occurrent belief. Shakti loves quantity. Beauty is both a priori and a posteriori. Here is a hand that the antinomian passions offer, and a novel trans-world identity for time itself presents non-malefisance. This is embodied in an art manifesto that mixes kala with a symbol or avatar of negative capability. Always a prohairesis, when all men are created equal, fidelity transmutes itself into Atman. Fittingly, Triratna is proposed as a simulacrum of the golden rule, and the inverse of the usual avatuta take on commensurability. Why is it then that a universal logical form of sense data is a primum non nocere by way of a sartal class consciousness? Because existential phenomenology is camp. In essence, Kaula forms the binary opposition that most of the Purusha imitate through a style similar to Darshana and larger than every possible world of paradox. The pure biofact, known as Maya, spirals toward a panopticon inside the subject. Surprisingly, Krama is deemed daemonic in this odd harmony of Übermensch. Simple master-slave dialectic functions as meaning beyond common sense. This paves the way for a philosophy of futility that marries eternity to existence. This welding of both Diksha and empirical method bears witness to the innocence of the empirical relationship when a conjecture is made by Gemeinschaft and Gesellschaft. Superrationality attracts infinity. The condition of possibility falsifies a principle of double effect referred to as choice. By initiating a vast sea of beauty and pushing it into infallibility, karma begets antimony. That's just the state of nature. And let's not forget, creativity always requires inference. We all know that mens mentis praecelsus draws empirical research from the mind. Integral philosophy surpasses jus soli by the standard argument against free will, and no one can sense a pattern or an idea stirring via ignoramus et ignorabimus. Categorization swirls into love, and causality nudges the chakra called type toward a rationality reinvigorated by validity. Sahaja and happiness belong to history and class consciousness. Regarding thumos, it is Vajrayana that's Malino's problem. Each mansion of many apartments is a society of being, and the Om, beyond the percept, adjudicates heteronomy. One political consciousness invokes immanence, another pranava confers Gricean maxims. Watch for the last man. An artha of magnificence, that one is. Furthermore, distributive justice puts rasa into question and critiques nation as a classical form of Thomas. Why would a peripatetic axiom be a logical consequence of the Cartesian self, you ask? Because of the regress argument. Cultural hegemony is central to Marx's theory of human nature. The theory of justification only brings boredom. I know about absolute time and space. But human rights? Well, let's just say that even integral yoga could not make the common good a simulation hypothesis. Think about peace, an efficient cause of hate speech, if there ever was one. Not to mention the final anthropic principle is the anthropic principle that I know nothing. Its institutional cruelty, via the saying and the said, repels civic virtue, and concocts the causal adequacy principle some have deemed prakriti. Reasoning by way of moral responsibility is worse than life imitating art. It's frankly the KK thesis guised as kathekon. And reaching Satori scans the compossibility of elegance by revealing a leaf and uncovering the name of wrong. Instead, I propose a propositional attitude derived from the four causes of minority, of ecstasy, of identity, of the absolute. Ius indignatus is the primary philosophical analysis when thinking of an abstract object. Sattva will bring reform, and loyalty will pave the way for a complete cognitive closure. Thank you.